so my precinct where I live in Prince George's County, Maryland, there are 1,800 registered voters. 6 of us are Republicans. How much mail do you think I get? And what is the party going to do to turn out the vote in my precinct? That's the problem with our political system, right. And that's one of the things that our founders was very concerned about, that the factions, as they called them, would become self-isolating, and they would become very particular in who they wanted to participate, which is why in their great wisdom, even though it didn't include the women, it didn't include minorities in the writing of the Constitution, we now benefit from that. And so we have an advantage that historically you would not think we would have, but we do. We are now the living, breathing aspects of this Constitution, and the political parties. And this is going to the point about the strength of the numbers, why you're looking at almost 50% of Americans going, I want something different. And guess what? You're going to create that something different. You're already starting to. Gen Z, Gen X, you're doing something very different than we're baby boomers. We're at the tail end of the baby booming generation. And so subsequent generations between us and you largely bought what we sold, politically, socially, economically, right? You're not. You're questioning. You're challenging the system in a way it doesn't want to be challenged. You've got to keep doing that. I advocated for and tried to, while I was chairman, and I can tell you how that meeting went, say that we should blow up our primary system.
Right.
It's a fiction that parties created. It's about 100 years old. It wasn't formed when the country was formed. We do not have to have a primary system. And Joe Biden has yet again made history without knowing he's made history.
What's that history?
Because he showed us we can elect a president in 4 months. We don't need 2 years to do this. We can do this in 6 months. In fact, if you look at Final Five voting, ranked choice voting, and other tools that are out there and available, between a primary and a general election, March to November. First off, let's get rid of November. Let's do it in the spring. Why do we do it in one of the coldest, darkest months of the year? It's dark at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. No one wants to go out. Do it in the spring. Make it a national holiday. Yeah. Right. We want to engage our citizens in the process of voting, but our system does not. Mm-hmm. And that's the tension you see playing out.
And now we're going to try to make it harder for people to vote. Everyone should check their voter registration status.
Yes, please do.
I don't care where you live, where you're from. Go to iwillvote.org or vote.org.
Or you can go to US Vote.
US Vote.
Go to US Vote and you type in your stuff and it tells you if you're registered.
It's
Takes
very
5 seconds.
important because as we speak, there are forces at hand to try to remove people from the voter registration rolls. Because maybe you didn't vote in the midterm of 2018, but you showed up in 2020, and then you didn't show up again in 22. Something stupid. The bottom line is there are forces that are making it harder for you to register to vote, harder for you to stay on the voter registration roll, especially if you change your residence, whatever, your status or your name, you name it. But in a democracy, it is the responsibility of the citizens, not the politicians, not the political parties. We're basically a vehicle. So I don't see us as demonic, all right? A little dysfunctional. But it's the citizens. It's we the people. It's not we the political parties. And if you give the politicians and the parties power, they won't utilize it to, like I say, target
are those
you,
the
but not
forces?
you.
But they'll use it against you.
That's
important to know.
That's
they'll utilize the
politics.
power against you.
What you said, there's forces out there that are trying to keep you from voting. What are those forces? Are they the party?
Look, it's not complicated. Just go Google Georgia voting. If you want to know what's happening, go take a look at Georgia's is sort of the laboratory, the textbook of what we're seeing happen of exactly what Donna was talking about in terms of limiting the access to the ballot box for citizens. And what is more galling to me is listening to and watching elected officials within my party go after and target largely communities of color. At the same time they're saying, oh, we're the greatest party ever for black people. I'm like, bitch, please. No, you're not. When I see what you did in Detroit, in Atlanta, in Philadelphia, in the last cycle, don't hand me that. And you shouldn't take it. And if you want to know exactly what they're doing to your vote, Google Georgia and look at what the legislature is doing there. The power in this system in terms of the change that has to come. If you want to change the Supreme Court, where do you think you need to change the Supreme Court? Anybody? Tell me how you change the Supreme Court.
Gotta vote.
You got to understand voting. But where do you vote? Where does that start?
Oh.
Yeah. Nope.
George.
Yes. Nope. U.S. Nope. Yeah. State legislature.
Tell me why.
Who draws the map? Who draws the congressional districts? You upset about redistricting? You're upset about gerrymandering? Vote out the legislators who are drawing the maps. They're the ones. How do I know? Because they worked for me.
You drew some maps.
I elected 800 of them in 2010.
He wiped us out.
I wiped them out.
We're being wussies on the Democrats.
I mean, I look at Democrats, I said, what? For 20 years, Republicans told you what the target was. 20 years.
They said it
Supreme
out
Court is
loud.
always the target.
And I hope this year, I mean, look.
I mean, you just got to know how the game is played and where your strength lies.